Hello, everyone. Welcome to Sunday's edition of Weekend Waypoints, production of SEC Extra and D1Baseball.com. I'm your host, Joe Healy. We're going to take you through Saturday's action around the SEC, 3 SEC Super Regional games on Saturday. We'll also get you ready for Sunday's slate. Before we get into anything specific, though, I have to remind you that this episode of Weekend Waypoints is brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors. The sun's out and the fun is on at Academy Sports and Outdoors. Score a cool pool, savor summer flavor with a grill, prep for fishing weekends, or mount up with a new mountain bike. However you have fun, you can't lose with our top brands. Gear up online at academy.com or at your local store. All right, friends, welcome back. A fun day. I think, the games mostly lived up to hype. LSU, West Virginia, less so, but wasn't too surprised by the outcome there. Felt like what we expected. LSU just better, but West Virginia clinging on for dear life the entire time and refusing to go away. But I thought it was a fun day of baseball. We'll start with the obvious place to start, and that's Coastal Carolina 4, Auburn 1, eliminating Auburn from the NCAA tournament. Coastal sweeps that Super Regional series in Auburn. First time Auburn had hosted a Super Regional. Doesn't go the way they would have liked it. And, I think I talked about this a little bit before the weekend, but this is where Coastal being underseeded really hurts a team. It's really not fair to Coastal to have had to go to the number 4 national seed, but also not fair to Auburn that's what they had to deal with. I get why they were seeded. I'm not even necessarily complaining about the committee because I understand, like, on resume, I understand why they are where they are. They're playing in the Sun Belt, which is a good league, but a top-heavy league. The quality wins just weren't necessarily there when you compare them to SEC, ACC teams, that group. So I get it. But at the same time, on talent, I think anyone who'd seen Coastal understood what they were. And so for Auburn, that's just a tough draw. And we saw what makes them tough again in this one. Auburn's bats went cold the last couple of days. I guess less so in the first game. They did all right in the first game, but certainly went cold yesterday. But Coastal has a lot to do with that. Jacob Morrison's a Sun Belt pitcher of the year. He's a legit prospect. Hayden Johnson out of the bullpen is nasty, like a big lanky lefty that feels like he's releasing the ball 10 feet from home plate. Because he's just got these long levers, and they combined to strike out 11, give up 1 run, work around some hits. Did a really nice job. I'll pull up the box score pulled up here. I don't have all of them pulled up, but Auburn did okay. 8 hits, but I think you can kind of intuit it by the box score here, though. For Auburn, you can see where the hits were kind of clustered, but then there's some offers in the lineup, kind of in places where they really needed somebody to come through with a big hit, and Coastal's pitching just did a nice job of working around all of that. A 3-run 7th inning for Coastal here. You see Walker Mitchell, RBI single. There was an error at first base that scored a run. That was reviewed. It was reviewed as a possible running lane violation for Coastal, ruled to have not been in the running lane. It was close. Foot was definitely on the foul line, but no call there. So that run scores, and then a bases loaded hit by pitch for Wells Sykes there. And that was the difference for Coastal, and they were able to salt the game away after that. Walker Mitchell in the middle of everything for Coastal. You see here a 3-for-5 day, a couple of RBIs. Sebastian Alexander, 3 hits. Those two guys had 6 of the 11 hits, but they were part of the big rally there in the 7th inning. And then for Auburn, a good outing for Andreas Alvarez. It's 2 weekends in a row. He, not dominant by any stretch of the imagination, but very good, and put up 4 zeros. And Cade Fisher danced around trouble and just couldn't quite dance around the last jam he got in. And so for Auburn, it was like, you pitched well enough to win this game, and just in a situation where oftentimes the offense has been good enough and the pitching hasn't been. This was just a little bit of the opposite, and that's baseball for you, right? So that's kind of how it goes. I would say generally, indisputably great season for Auburn. Disappointed that it ended like this, obviously, but great season. Anytime you are a top 8 national seed, that's a great season unequivocally. The future is very bright. I think that next year's team could be even better, frankly. You lose Ike Irish. You're going to lose Cooper McMurray. Those are big losses, of course. But you look through the lineup, and you've got freshman hitting first. This is yesterday's lineup. Freshman hitting second. You've got a sophomore in Bristol Carter who will be back. You've got a freshman catching, right? And then you started a freshman in Andreas Alvarez. Then you've also got Christian Chatterton, who's going to be back. So you've got a really nice core there for Auburn. And so I do think the future is really bright for them. So disappointing ending to it, but I think a really good jumping off point for the 2026 Auburn team that I think has a chance to be really, really good. So, but good stuff from Coastal. I'm looking forward to seeing Coastal in Omaha. I think they could do some damage in Omaha too, just given that the way a team that's pitching focused and a team that manufactures runs, that ballpark, which is not the graveyard that it used to be in terms of the ball flying out. It'll fly a little bit now, but still it's a big ballpark with a big outfield and a team that's pretty athletic, good defensively, manufactures runs, pitches well. Like that sounds like a recipe for Coastal to be able to do some things, because it's going to come up against physical offenses in Omaha that it would struggle to shut down probably in a home ballpark, whether it's their ballpark or, pick your ballpark of these teams that are left. Most of them are hitters parks. It's going to be more pitcher friendly than that. So I'll be intrigued. I think they've got a chance to really, to really do. Pause for dramatic sip of water. I think they have a chance to do some damage there, but we'll see. All right, let me go into some comments before we talk about Arkansas and Tennessee, because I imagine there will be some comments in here about that game. So I'm going to skip those and we'll come back real quick. Morning vis-a-vis, I see you there. Marquez says D1 should have had Coastal ranked higher than number 11. Yeah, probably. And we will now. We will certainly have them ranked higher. And it's fair. Like you mentioned, we had them ranked 11. Yeah, that's totally fair. Like we were right there with the committee. So we were underestimating them as well. Austin Larroquette says, no surprise with Auburn losing. Don't have an ace. Dutton was really good this year, but he was always an average Saturday starter. I think some of that's fair. Like I think you can hold these two thoughts at the same time. One, yes, like Dutton had a really nice year, but ultimately he's not like a Tanner Burns, Casey Mize. I mean, few guys are, but like he's not in that class, right? On the same time, though, he was a lot better than I think anybody could have reasonably expected, at least for the first 3 quarters of the season, right? He was so much better than I think anybody expected. So those two things I think are true at the same time. I do think it hurt them a little bit in this series, and even last week with Dutton on the mound against Stetson, like it was a gritty outing, but it wasn't like he shut down the Hatters, right? So this postseason, it has not gone according to script for him. But I think that's fair. I mean, it's going to be a big thing for Auburn, either, Alvarez or Chatterton or someone stepping up to be a true Friday guy or finding one in the portal. So I think that's going to be big for Auburn. They've got the pieces to be really good, as I mentioned earlier, but they do have some holes to fill here. Mark says Auburn needed Coulter Bean and Chris Butchek, but they weren't walking through that door. They sure weren't. Nedland 31 says, Joe, as the SEC has fallen on its face this postseason, do you think the poor performance will change how the SEC is viewed when it comes to selection time going forward, or just viewed as a bad year? So I think it's mostly going to be viewed as the latter, just a bad year. It's baseball, right? We're talking about small samples. Regional weekend and super regional weekend are just small samples, and every team can fall on its face in a small sample. However, I do wonder if there will be a certain level of reflection on the selection committee's part to take a harder look at. They did talk about interconference strength of schedule, so it's not like they ignored it. But I do wonder, because I've talked about this before, that some of these teams, that SEC teams that kind of fell flat, you just wonder if they were hosts that should have been 2s, or they were top 8s that should have been kind of in that 8 to 16 range, or they were 2s that should have been 3s, or whatever, right? Because we had 2 teams in the SEC that had 8 combined wins. and in Missouri and South Carolina. Those two teams combined to go 8-52 in the SEC. And so when that's the case, like how much are those wins worth? If you played both of those teams and went 6-0 or 5-1, that whole discussion, we don't need to relitigate it. But that whole discussion, I think, will require a fresh look. And now maybe South Carolina's already put in a lot of work in the portal. Maybe they'll be better next year. That's relatively easy to imagine. It's hard to imagine it gets worse. I guess I shouldn't say that just in case it does. But and then if Missouri's better, which is easy to see, they won 3 games. So if those two teams are better next year, maybe it's not a concern. But I do think if we have a similar dynamic next year, that I do wonder if it's something that gets even more scrutiny. But generally speaking, it's a great question. But I think generally speaking, it'll be viewed as just a one-off. Now, if this happens next year, then maybe we can have a larger discussion. But I think for now, I think it's going to be treated as a one-off. And Clay's right. SEC just to grind with all the good teams. They beat each other up and teams get hot at different times. Yeah, that's part of it too, is like certain teams just get hot at the right time. And I think we saw some of that with, Auburn played really well last weekend. And maybe Coastal would have always beaten them, even if they played well. But I don't think it'd be a sweep in that case. And but Auburn just didn't play as well this time around. Connor Johnson, he asked nicely. So he said, would love to hear your thoughts on Beavs Knowles. Yes, I know it's an SEC show. Welcome back, Connor. Good to see you. I know you've been in with us before. That's been a fun series, man. Bradley Smart wrote a great piece on the site. Although it's a little bit FSU focused. So Connor, maybe you'll take a pass on that one. But that's been a fun series. The 2 games have basically been like mirror images of each other a little bit. First game featured a lot of really great defense as part of run prevention. That was kind of fun. Yesterday was all about strikeouts. The teams combined to strike out 28 batters in the game. But I guess that's going to happen when you have Jamie Arnold on the mound. And then Ethan Kleinschmidt I've seen him a couple times this year, but that was the best I've seen him. It was kind of electric, honestly. And to find that guy just hanging around at Lynn Benton, which is, local junior college, is a huge get for Mitch Canham and crew. He was great. I had a lot of fun watching him, and just the Noles came through with a couple of clutch hits, and that was the whole difference. I do like where Oregon State is at. I assume Wes Mendez is going to go for Florida State, but they're a team too that kind of once you get past Vellini and Arnold, you can have a little more success, and especially if you can get into the bullpen on this third day. If you can get into this bullpen early, I really like Oregon State's chances because that's been such a problem for Florida State this season. So if this gets into kind of like a tussle where it's, a bullpen game in the 5th inning or something like that, I'd go advantage Oregon State because I trust their bullpen to come in and get things done in a way that Florida State's bullpen, I just don't trust to do that. So first 2 games have been as compelling as any games we've had in this super regional round. So I'm excited. I'm glad that this game is late, or at least for us on the East Coast, Connor. I'm glad that this game is late because I'll be home from my game, done with my writing, and I can just lock in on it. I'm excited for that game 3. So good question. Willing to take it. It's the postseason. Let's have some fun. Clay Phillips says, Coastal going to win another one. #Natty. I don't want to limit them. They look really good, but we'll see. We shall see. Jeremy Scott says, Roll Tide, some big portal pickups already. Indeed, Alabama's had some good portal pickups. South Carolina, Auburn, Georgia, of course. And we'll do maybe whether on Highway to Hoover or on this show, maybe next weekend when there's just going to be fewer games and fewer teams involved and there's days off for teams, but as part of the CWS bracket, maybe we'll spend a little more time on portal stuff as that goes on. Josh Willie, this is in reference to the SEC's performance, just a bad result in small sample size until proved otherwise. I'm with you there. Josh also says, really fun watching Helfrich now. That's I tell you what, let's pause there on comments. Let's talk about Arkansas, Tennessee. Had some other comments up top. I wanted to start with this one. Sam Smith says, set the precedent for what actions Doyle can do today. Get the popcorn ready. Yeah, that was a big talking point after the game. Zach Root had a emotional outburst, let's say, directed it at Andrew Fisher. It was pretty intense. Dave Van Horn at the end after the game was like, I don't really like that. And that's kind of out of character for Arkansas's team largely because I think the way Dave Van Horn operates, like he's not a huge fan of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was certainly, and the comparison is being made to Cannon Peebles last weekend, an ejection that was softer than that, obviously softer than what Zach Root did, or less than Zach Root did. But it's just, so I get that, and I get the frustration from Tennessee fans. So trust me when I say that I hear you. I would be frustrated too in your shoes. It's just from weekend to weekend, it's different crews. And as much as we'd like to put umpires like these are NCAA umpires, I'm doing air quotes. The reality is it's not really that uniform. Like, yes, they're playing out of the same rule book, and yes, they have all the same guidance, but it's not like MLB umpires where they're just one unit and they're together, like they have a union, and this is their full-time job, and this is all, for some of the guys it is, but other guys have other things going on and other jobs and businesses. And so it's like from weekend to weekend, you just don't know. You can't be sure how the rules are going to be applied. Now, you can, by this point, the umpires that are working the games, and some people will probably scoff at this, but the umpires working the games now have been graded as the best in their region. So the guys who are umping these games have been graded highly. So there's that. But you just don't know from weekend to weekend. Some guys are a little more no nonsense. Some guys are a little more willing to let things play out. And you just don't know how that's going to be. And Tony Vitello alluded to that in the post game, where he's like, it was a different crew last weekend. But again, I understand his frustration that, hey, we lost our catcher for something a lot less than what Zach Root did. And so I do get the frustration, but I just think this is what happens. Like things from crew to crew are policed differently, and there's no real mechanism by which we can what's the word I'm looking for? Have those rules applied uniformly across, right? It's not like we can have a big meeting of all the umpires around the country and do like a show and tell of like, here's what they can say, here's what they can't say, because it's just not that centralized. The umpire system is not that centralized. Like they're not NCAA employees. They're not, part of some, like they don't have they have umpire supervisors that grade them, but they don't have like a boss. There's a supervisor of umpires, but he's not really, he helps grade the umpires, but he's not, that supervisor's not having meetings with his umpires every day. Like, so it's just more decentralized, I think, than people realize, especially during the regular season. But even in the postseason, with these umpires being the ones who have been graded the best, consistency is an issue. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't try. I'm just saying that it's a lot more difficult than I think it would be on. If this were a Major League Baseball issue, I think they could fix this quickly. Internal memo, let's get everybody together, let's get on the same page. That's probably just not happening at this level. So anyway, we'll get to the game now. It lived up to the hype. The atmosphere was great. Zach Root outburst aside, shoved. He was great. Gave up, I think it was one hit, 2 runs. One of them was earned. Arguably his best outing of the year. Ryder Helfrich, who Josh Willie mentioned, an absolute wall scraper of a home run. I'm not sure I've seen a home run that on TrackMan came off the bat at 84 miles an hour, and I think traveled, it said 313 feet, which the fence is further than that, at least what's listed. So, and sometimes TrackMan can get fooled a little bit. So like those numbers aren't always just bang on, but still, like, I'm not sure I've ever seen a softer hit home run, which look, Ryder Helfrich does not have to apologize for that home run. So it was a big one. It really turned the tide there. I think Tennessee's still in a decent spot today. You've got Liam Doyle on the mound, and I didn't mind the Phillips starting the first game, in part because Phillips has just been really good. Like you compare him to Liam Doyle and it's like, okay, there's a difference here, but it's not like he hasn't been excellent this year, because for the most part he has been. But I like being in a situation where you knew Tennessee was either going to have Doyle in a game to send them to Omaha or in a game to save their season. And so I think this is if you'd have told Tennessee, hey, look, especially late in the season when they were kind of going through it, you're going to be on the road for a super, but you're going to have Liam Doyle on the mound to save your season. Like they're like, all right, if that's the situation we have to be in, then that's the best we can hope for. It's having Doyle on the mound. It's not like Arkansas blew Tennessee out yesterday. Like Tennessee was right there. They'll be right there again. I'm sure it'll be another close game. I'm almost certain. Gage Wood on the other side for Arkansas, so it's not like it's a walk in the park for Tennessee either. But we'll see if Gage Wood can kind of match Doyle pitch for pitch. We'll find out. But a lot of stuff on the mound in Fayetteville as we anticipated. Already was a lot of stuff. Zach Root, as a commenter mentioned here, touched 99, which I saw him in person a couple times this year, and it wasn't that, but he reached back on a strikeout of Andrew Fisher and got 99. So he was clearly juiced up for that start, but should be more velo today with Doyle and Gage Wood on the mound. All right, let me scroll through these comments here. We'll get caught up. Oh, by the way, I skipped this one earlier from Mark. No way Joe stayed up to watch Coastal versus Auburn game 1. I did not, although I did stay up for that game 1 until they put the tarp on. When they put the tarp on, I was like, all right. But I got up yesterday morning and I watched the last 3 innings after the rain delay on the replay. So I did see it. I just did not stay up for it. Moonshine says, have fun in Omaha. Thank you. Looking forward to being in Omaha. Looking forward to being back in that ballpark. Sorry, just scrolling. Making sure I'm not missing anything here. Vis-a-vis says, Arkansas is going to take Tennessee's best shot today. As long as Gage and company steps up, they've got a good chance to end it today. Yeah, they absolutely do. Like, the same thing is true of Arkansas, right? Of like, hey, you're in a home super regional. You win game 1, and now you've got Gage Wood on the mound to try to win you the series. I think they'd take that. Now, then you tell them Liam Doyle's on the other side, and they're like, okay, that's tough. But I think they're still going to like their position. So I agree with you there. Marquez says, if FSU loses, boy, game 1 will be hard to take. Yeah, no kidding. After that comeback for Oregon State in game 1, FSU's just a couple of outs, 1 out. Did they have 2 outs in the 9th before that all started? I think maybe. They were just that 1 out away from being done with this series, and now they're getting dragged into a game 3 on the road against a team that is obviously tough and resilient. Marquez says Coastal could win it all. I agree. Jeremy, I see your question about the NCAA settlement case. Mark and I will tackle that on an upcoming podcast episode, just to give that more time. Because here I just not really enough time to like really get into it. And also, to be honest, because it came down on Friday and I've been covering super regionals, and all of us at D1 have been covering, there just really hasn't been time for me to even do the reading I need to do for people who are smarter than me to give me an idea of what I should think about it, much less what I should, share with you guys. So I just need to do my homework a little bit, but Mark and I will tackle that. We'll maybe bring on an expert, someone who can help us navigate that space. But yeah, we will certainly dive into that, Jeremy. Don't you worry. Mark, we did not post our bracket challenge. We did used to do that. And I don't, to be honest, and this is not a critique of my colleagues, I don't know why we stopped doing that. But no, we did not do that this year. Now, a lot of people did do brackets. So maybe afterwards we can kind of talk about, who did what and who was good and who wasn't. Standardized was the word I was looking for. Mark, thank you. Joey says, balls chased both Root and Wood in the 3rd 3 weeks ago. We'll both end up shoving this weekend. I mean, maybe it's one of those things where, like, with good players, whether it's a hitter or a pitcher, if you as a team did well against that player the first time you saw them, it almost makes you more nervous for the second time because it's just like, well, are we really going to have that kind of success twice in a row? So I get it. There's just the idea, and especially once you see what Root did yesterday, it's like, okay, well, are we just in for a different experience? That's on the table, but also the flip side of that, of course, Joey, as you know, is like, if we had that kind of success once, we can do it again. So, that may be in the cards as well. 320 feet on the Helfrich home run, says vis-a-vis. Thank you. Look, note, Arkansas fans, this is Eric Simmons with this comment and not Joe Healy. I'm just reading it. He says, I think if Arkansas gets by Tennessee, I think this might finally be the year that they win the national championship. What do you think? I will say this quietly, but I think it might be if they get past Tennessee. Now, I don't want to count if you're Arkansas, you cannot count those chickens. Tennessee absolutely can come back and win the next 2 days. that is on the menu as a potential option. But this Arkansas team, we've said it all year. Like it's well-rounded. Feels like a team that can win a bunch of different ways. It doesn't just feel like that; it is that. But again, that was not Joe Healy saying that and bringing that into consciousness. that was Eric. Which I'm joking, Eric. It's a good question, but I just know there's some folks, some Razorbacks who are nervous about speaking that out into the world, just given the history there. Bo says LSU going to break their own Rocco's Jello shot record. They might. I'd love to see it. Especially since those guys do a really good job, Rocco's, of supporting some charitable organizations. They've supported food pantries in some of these communities, in these college towns before. I love seeing that. That's a lot of fun. I don't normally, this probably won't surprise you as someone who's I'm pushing 40 now. Not a big Jello shot guy anymore at this stage of my life, but I do go out of my way to buy some, and then I'll just hand them the cash and say, like, here's, you can, the next round of Jello shots that somebody orders can be on me, or they can pay it forward, whatever. So, I love what those guys do at Rocco's. It's really created like a fun second thing to pay attention to other than the baseball, right? It's a lot of fun to track that, and they do a lot of good work in the community and in other communities as well. Bryant Lane says Liam was great last week, but did seem mortal the 2 weeks before. Yeah. And you wonder how much the blister stuff was part of that. And it just feels like week to week, you don't know what to expect on that, but this is a postseason for Liam Doyle. You think he's going to be a little bit extra juiced. If Monday is any indication, of the regional is any indication, I think he'll be ready to roll, and you'll have to pry the ball out of his hands. But you're right. Like, there have been starts this year where he's been a little more mortal. And Bo, to answer your question, yes, I do think they will break the record. Because I think they're going to come in, LSU fans, with that as a goal. Austin Larroquette says it won't be Arkansas's year because they're going to run into a buzzsaw in Cade Anderson, who was pissed off after his start yesterday. I mean, that could be that's just, that obviously matchups can be different. I'm looking to see who, with that being the opening round matchup, that's so funny how it works too, how this bracket breaks. Just that not only did Tennessee and Arkansas to face off in a super regional in a year when there were all kinds of upsets around regionals, and then, oh, by the way, the first round in Omaha is going to be the winner of Tennessee Arkansas against most likely LSU. So good luck, enjoy. Just it's funny how the bracket breaks sometimes. Yeah, this is the interesting thing, Joey. I thought about this too. It says the 3 CWS favorites are SEC teams, and at least one, probably 2, are going to Omaha. If the SEC wins 6 in a row, is it really a down year? Yeah, we'll have to think about that because it's how do you judge how good a year a league had, right? There's all kinds of different metrics you can use, but I think that's fair. I think you could make that argument if they win another one. And obviously it's the thing about the way this bracket has broken is that it will break a streak of SEC on SEC finals. So we will, for once, have another conference on the other side of the bracket, but that's just the way the bracket fell. But that maybe it isn't a down year if the league wins another title, Randy Etheridge says, as a Texas fan, Arkansas was by far the best team we played all year, no doubt. Monster lineup, Aloy, a monster at short. Agreed. Yeah. And I just think their best has been better than anybody else's best, I guess is what I would say. All right. I saw your comment, Carl, earlier. I was going to pull it up as an entree to talk about the LSU game. Where did it go here? There it is. I survived the heat at the box yesterday. Hope this is championship Sunday. I'm ready for regionals to be over and go to Omaha. Yeah, hot in the box yesterday, but a 16-9 win for LSU over West Virginia. The Mountaineers did a good job against Cade Anderson. Like, that's about as good as you can expect to perform against Cade Anderson. The problem is, once the LSU lineup got going in the fourth inning, it didn't slow down. They just ran away with things kind of in the middle innings against Griffin Kern, but then against the WVU bullpen, and then never really looked back. They just kind of continued adding on. And like I said, West Virginia kind of kept coming. So credit to West Virginia. Like, we saw this coming. That's not a team that's going to fold up the tent just because they got punched in the mouth. So that was not unexpected, but it also wasn't unexpected that LSU scored the 16 runs and was able to ultimately kind of comfortably win, even if you would have preferred maybe some more zeros. But LSU did a good job. They avoided using any of their top relievers. So that with Ianson on the mound, they've got all those guys. Feels like they're in really good shape pitching wise here for game 2. Big game for Derek Curiel. Hit a home run in this game as well. That was kind of the momentum shifting home run, Curiel's home run. So I don't quite want to call it a routine win, just because the fact that West Virginia kind of kept coming does suggest that, like, today's probably not going to be any easier. But it did feel like the game was played on LSU's terms. I think it will continue being played on LSU's terms. I'd be surprised if this goes 3. And then if it does go 3, it gets a little bit dicey, because obviously LSU after Anderson and Ianson is a different proposition, much in the same way that Tennessee after Phillips and Doyle is a different proposition. LSU is kind of the same way. So I like where LSU's at. I like them to close it out today. And then we'll talk about it if they don't. That'll be a topic moving forward. This will be the last show this weekend, obviously. But Mark and I will be back with another podcast to kind of recap Super Regionals, look ahead to Omaha, kind of in the middle of the week. So we will have that as well. All right, folks, that is going to do it for this edition of Weekend Waypoints, production of SEC Extra and D1Baseball.com. I want to thank Academy Sports and Outdoors for sponsoring this and every Weekend Waypoints this season. But I mostly want to thank you guys for joining me live, for all your great questions, all your great comments. I say it all the time that's my favorite part of this whole deal. But I say it all the time because it's true. Obviously want to make it known that I appreciate you. Mark says, Joe sprinting out of here. Just trying to be efficient and wrapping it up. But also I do need to get to Chapel Hill. So Mark is not totally wrong about that. All right, everybody, enjoy the games today. Mark and I will be back with Highway to Hoover in the middle of the week, and then I will be back with Weekend Waypoints Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, recapping this round of the postseason and getting you ready for Omaha. Enjoy the games today, everybody. I'll talk to you soon.